What is the purpose of ritual? For most of my life, I saw it as empty movement, religious going through the motions, a self-satisfying reassurance. If I say the right words and put my body in the right position, my life will be okay. It seemed like a compulsive disorder. Or like a dog always turning around before lying down. When I was a child, I had a dog named Princess, and she loved to swim. She'd be the first one to jump in the water any time that we went swimming. And we would take her swimming far out into the lake. We had a raft that was about an eighth of a mile out, and she would swim. It'd be over her head. She just loved to swim. Well, one day we went to an inland lake, and near the shoreline was this root. It just kind of stuck up through the sand, and it was about this long and about this wide. And our dog got fascinated by it, and she would kind of bat at it and dig at it and sniff at it. Spent the whole day. She was about 9 years old, and she spent the whole day playing with that root. And then, from that point on, whenever we went swimming at various different lakes, but mostly at the big lake, Lake Huron, she would no longer jump in the water. She stood at the shore looking for that root, and then not finding the root would just stand there and continue and do those motions. I think it was a religious experience for her. A ritual. A meaningless motion trying to reach something that isn't there. My opinion of ritual was very low. But I have since discovered that ritual accomplishes for a few things, and maybe for people, and maybe even for dogs. First, ritual is a chance to connect with something larger than ourselves. When a Jewish person begins a prayer, Baruch Atah Adonai, they are instantly connected to 3,000 years of tradition. The stillness a Zen practitioner feels is the same stillness as the ancient masters. The Wiccan tries to draw down energy from the universe. Secondly, ritual stills the mind. One thing that I hated about ritual was that it was mindless. And I have come to learn that that's distinctly the point. Having a set procedure stops our constant analyzing, what the Buddhists call the monkey mind, which jumps from place to place, which the psychologists would call obsessive thoughts. Much to the surprise of Unitarian Universalists, not all problems are solved rationally. Rituals are needed to provide artistic and emotional answers to those questions that don't make sense. The world contains both the rational and the irrational, and a good ritual can complete the picture. Thirdly, a ritual can help build identity and belonging. Crossing themselves helps the Catholic feel Catholic. Looking at an icon reminds a Russian that she is Orthodox. Even sports offer secular rituals that give people a sense of identity. Why else would people from Wisconsin wear foam wedges of cheese as hats, proudly declaring that they are cheeseheads? It's not rational. But the sense of identity and belonging are powerful and needed by human beings. We UUs are not total strangers to rituals. On Sunday, we come to service. We sit through basically what is a Protestant-style service. Some of the rituals are the same. We have a sermon. We stand to sing hymns. We have some slightly different rituals. We light a chalice that represents our religious freedom, and we light candles of joy and concern. And in this congregation, at the end, we say our special words. Let us go in peace, believe in peace, create peace. May it be so. We are no strangers to Sunday ritual. But when we walk out the door, what do we do the other 6 days? Do we pray on rosary beads? Do we study our Bibles? Do we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo? Do we fast? Do we kneel and bow towards Mecca or Boston? There is no uniquely Unitarian Universalist practice. If any of us do have a daily practice, it is probably borrowed from some other tradition. Taoist Tai Chi, Hindu yoga, Buddhist meditation, Christian or Jewish prayer. We are an eclectic bunch. We dabble in everything or do nothing. If something does not make sense to us, we are probably not going to do it. But ritual cannot be understood. It must be experienced. It takes us out of ourselves and back to ourselves. There are at least 3 types of rituals: the mental, the physical, and the social. The mental rituals include prayer, meditation, reading, and artistic expression. Prayer is a way of admitting we do not have all the answers. Those who can name a god or goddess ask for guidance, admit mistakes, and express gratitude. But even agnostics can bow to the mystery, praise existence, count their blessings, and confess wrongdoings. What if we set time aside each day to do these things? How would our life change? What if we built a small altar to what we think is important and acknowledge it? Meditation is less directive, a chant or nothing at all, just sitting, taking respite from your worries, breaking the domination of the voices that nag us, cleansing our minds so that we can perceive the world anew. Reading scripture or poetry is the way to take us outside of ourselves. I like scripture or poetry because you read it in small chunks. A novel doesn't quite do it. It's taking time to struggle with a text, to be confronted by it, to say, what does this mean to me? How does it shake my assumptions? How do my emotions react? Others of us, and I know that there are many in this congregation who do this, write poetry, trying to express those deepest, or sometimes even the ridiculous feelings that we have inside of us. What if each day we had a blank page in front of us, and we just took 15 minutes to fill that page with poetry, prose, drawing, maybe just putting a dot in the middle of the page and being aware of the emptiness. Trying to find freely what flows from your heart and through your pen and pencil. Spiritual practice is primarily setting aside time to say, this matters. Others of us may do music, some may compose, others may learn the works of others. But another possibility is just working on the scales. This is why I'm not as good of a musician as I could be, because this always drives me mad. Because it's tedious at first. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. And then you find out that even though this is so simplistic, I still am missing every third note trying to do a scale. And I usually gave up. But the times where I did do it, just to get through and back and forth until I'm no longer thinking about what the notes are that I'm playing, until they are just there, somehow flowing from inside of me. Something clicks over, something hypnotic, something beautiful. Prayer, meditation, and artistic expressions are ways that we try to change our mental state. But physical practice takes us even further from our mind. Tai Chi, finding a way of focusing the energy in one's body, and the various poses and movements change lives. Yoga is another way at getting at one's spirit by stretching one's body. But some of us need more cardiovascular activity, aerobic exercise so that we can feel the burn. Rock climbing offers a physical challenge in confronting the risk of falling. Any way we test our physical body changes the way we are in the world. As an example, I want you to please join me in this exercise. As you sit in your chair, tense up your muscles. Make a fist. Think of everything that makes you tense. What are your fears, your anxiety? All those things, just put them in your body. We tend to locate our thoughts in our body, but this time be intentional and just feel that tension. Hold it. And add to that tension your rage. What are those things that are unfair, those angers? That really helps you tighten up that fist. Think of the person that you might want to use that fist on in moments, but hold it tighter. And it hurts. We're holding on so tight that it hurts. It hurts to cling to our fears and our rage, yet we are afraid to release because it somehow feels so good to be right. But you're holding on to that tension, those fears and those rage, and then release it. Let us take the time to release our muscles. Let us release our pain, release our rage. How do you feel? 1 minute of being aware of your body. How would our lives change if each day we spent more time with our body, being fully aware of its capabilities and its stresses? Another form of spiritual practice is social practice. These are less ritualistic and more like decisions that we make about how we're going to be in the world. The Hasidic Jew does not cut the edge of his hair or their beard. The Buddhist monk shaves his head. The Muslim does not eat pork. The Jain is vegan so as not to harm any creature. Some Christians wear a cross. What are the UU social rituals? Once a young child was asked, "What do Unitarian Universalists believe?" And she replied, "I don't know, but I think it has something to do with recycling." Scott Alexander, a minister up in Bethesda, Maryland, has edited a book that says Everyday Spiritual Practice. And he's talked to nearly 40 people talking about what they do as UUs in their spiritual practice. And there's so much variety from creating the home altar, practicing martial arts, fasting, quilting, sometimes just being very intentional about how much waste they produce and trying to reduce that in their everyday lives. Just something that says, how am I going to be in the world? Other UUs buy equal exchange coffee so the growers get a better price. Some of us write letters to the editor. Some of us write our congressman. Now, personally, I would like if all UUs would tattoo their name to their forehead. It would make me easier for me to remember names, and plus it would make our movement more visible. Any city in the world, you see someone with a tattoo on their forehead, you know they are a UU. Okay, maybe chalice jewelry is more appropriate. Social, spiritual practices are about identity. They remind us who we are, but also a way of being in the world. UUs have very few universal rituals. Perhaps the flaming chalice is the only one, and even that is only about 50 years old for a very small part of our movement. And even I, as a minister, don't have one in my home. We are an eclectic people. Our personal practices may vary, but it might be possible to find something that binds us to one another. What would a UU daily practice look like? In this month's newsletter, I talked about placing an altar in our homes. Perhaps the only thing that would be universal on that altar would be the candle or the chalice as a light. And we talk about all of us are very busy, and that how could we ever have time to do this? And how could we ever figure out a way to, because it's just so inconvenient, because we are buffeted about by so many social pressures. Well, one of our members, James Salvidio, is studying to be a chaplain's assistant as he goes into the armed forces. And he shared with me a guidebook to making field altars, well, for Christians, for Protestants, for Catholics and Orthodox. And it's basically this little suitcase that you open up and fold out, and there's a table and things go on. And then the Jewish one is particularly difficult because it has two parts. You won't be able to see this, but there's two suitcases you put on one end, and then you have to put a cloth over the suitcase handle so it doesn't look like you're worshiping a suitcase. and then in the suitcase are all the ingredients needed, and so you eventually come up with prayer books and the Torah and the fringe and the candles and the Kiddush cup and some wine and the pointer for reading the Torah. And this is all while under fire. having a spiritual practice, perhaps an altar in our home, or perhaps something that we carry with us in our heart, something that we might use to remember who we are, is a valuable thing. Last week I did give some homework and asked people to bring something that they might place on our altar here. And if you have not brought anything, you can always bring yourself and come up and say a little bit about what you do to center yourself and live your Unitarian Universalism 7 days a week. I'll borrow from another one of our rituals. Anybody who wishes to add something to our altar or speak, just please come up and stand where you would for joys and concerns. And while you're coming up, I'll explain what I'm putting on the altar. I'm putting on an elk. An elk is something that I use to remind myself of who I am. It's a creature of the North Woods. It is powerful, and I often have to remind myself that I have the power. And the antlers, to me, represent that kind of reaching out for whatever is in the atmosphere, whatever is spiritual. And they're powerful, but they are non-predatory. And they also sing and bellow very loudly.
My name is Ellie Hart, and Daryl and I have a home altar. We're Wiccan. And on our home altar, in the center of it, is one of those nature fountains. Of course, you plug it in, and the water runs over the rocks. That's the center of our altar, and it changes according to the seasons. And we've just finished with our Salmon altar, and we're getting ready to start preparing for our Yule altar.
I'm Jane Milner, and my altar is on my back porch. I have many, many rocks of my mother's gem and mineral collection, which was pretty extensive. And I have water there. I made a fountain that has a lot of the rocks in it, and that were hers. And I feel very connected to the earth, and I also have some Vermont rocks there, so I have to have my Vermont rocks. And if I move with my house, because I have the Vermont rocks in my garden that I can see from the porch, they're going with me. I can't leave them. And I wear, always wear jewelry from my mother's and my father's side of the family. So I have, like, one ring is from my father's side of the family, and one ring is from my mother's side of the family. And I also wear bracelets that are from either side of the family. I always have one or another piece from one side or the other of my family, and that connects me to my roots. And I brought a gem that I wear today to put on the altar.
I'm Anne Murray, and I have an altar that has recently been moved to my bedroom, which is actually a much more convenient place for daily something. And it's a glass-topped table, and inside the table, meaning under the glass, I have sort of a Zen-like garden, sand and rocks, and a little Buddha statue I picked up in a Tibetan store. And on top of it, I have a Tibetan singing bowl, and I use that bowl for almost daily breathing meditation, but I didn't bring it.
Hi everyone, I'm James Salvidio. I gave him that nice little thing. I didn't know he'd be mentioning it today. That's one way how I don't have an altar set up. I just do a lot of things to try to keep myself busy, and I find myself studying religion quite often, being a big hobby of mine and soon to be a profession, and I just start the day and end the day every day with a song, and that's just what I do to cheer myself up and that and the fear of what my wife will say, you didn't do this while I was gone or something. I just always try to keep in mind what she's going to say, and it keeps me focused.
I'm Andrea Morrison, and I have what I call a nature table that has a variety of things on it that I've collected from trips or friends. And it includes rocks and some lava rocks from Hawaii, from Pele, and I've not had any bad thing happen to me because I took her lava rocks, which is the folklore there. And I have feathers, and I have a dead bumblebee, and I have a snake skin, and shells, and I brought the basket of shells that I have on my nature table today, and I'm adding this one.
I'm Caleb Masland. My altar, I never really thought of it as an altar before now, but it's actually on my body, and I'll show it to you when I'm done. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. My sophomore year of college, I got a tattoo on my back, and it's a sugar maple leaf. I'm from Vermont originally, and inside it is the Chinese symbol for balance. So I'll show it to everybody now. I think you might be able to see it a little bit. Or somebody can help.
You have to turn this way.
That's great. My name's Jim Campbell, and I'm one of these people who's moving so fast all the time. I try and make my own body my altar. Try and take care of it well, whatever. But you also have to have tools. And me being a very mechanically minded person, as people know, I'm a physician also. One of the most amazing tools you carry around all the time is a pen. Now this pen, I try and make it do good. I have to write prescriptions for people, orders, various things, and you try and make them better with it, whether it be working in a laboratory or working in a clinic. If the pen is mightier than the sword, then of course I couldn't bring it, but the computer and the word processor is better than a machine gun or an RPG. So I want to remind everybody of that, and I just want to think every time when I write with this pen that I'll try and do some good with it.
My name is David Crump, and my Indian name is Eagle Eye. And when I saw Jim come up here, I just couldn't help but come up and say this. I have an altar at home. It's right by my dining room table, so that every morning when I get up, every night when I go to bed, I walk by that altar and I have to think about connections and what that means to me. Well, a couple of years ago, Jim Campbell brought me a sign, and I have that sign now on my altar as a reminder of the connections that I have to various people in this fellowship. The sign reads, Eagle Eye, I think it's Cabinet Works. Now, Jim told me that he found this in the front yard of a home somewhere here in Winston-Salem. Apparently, the home was being worked on by someone that had a cabinet business. So I'm here to say that if this sign belongs to anyone in this fellowship, I'll be happy to return it.
Hi, I'm Patty Goodrich, and I have a dog, Casey, and I walk her a lot, and I live close to Bethesda Park Walkway, not the Parkway, I live close to that as well. And essentially, Bethesda Walkway is pretty much an altar for me. I have seen deer early in the morning. I have found a tortoise, which I believe is my totem, right in the middle of the walkway, and I just marvel in nature throughout every season. And I'm very lucky to live there, and if anybody can get a chance to go out there, I know there's some bird watchers in here. It's a wonderful outdoor sanctuary.
I'm Brooks Jones, and knitting for me is a form of meditation. It forces me to take time for myself, and I find that it forces me to relax. I'm not able to knit well when I'm holding tension and all crunched up, and it helps me get to where I feel is the best spiritual place for me when I'm creating something new from nothing.
I'm Diane Spa, and I've always had altars, and they kind of travel with me wherever I go. and they're in different rooms of the house. But a couple of years ago, I moved into an office and have been lucky enough to be in the same office for 2.5 years. And I now have altars there, and I just find that when staff come in or clients come in, they're very drawn to the altar, and it just seems to create a very safe place for them and for me. But what I wanted to share is about 6 months ago, I came home one day and went into my daughter's room and found that she had taken a table and created an altar. And she's 11. And we had never talked about it, and she had never asked me why I had altars or what they meant to me, but she now sits at her altar and rearranges things and has a little Zen sand garden there, and I just feel really fortunate that she picked that up from being around people like you.
This has been a good service for me to listen to, because I have been running for 2 weeks. I have been so scattered and angry. I was angry when Bush came to town. I lost my voice for a week from screaming at him. When I thought about what symbolizes me, I really have a great affinity for horses all my life. I've never had one. I've never even been able to care for one, but I've always felt that there was something in their nature, their bigness, their fleetness, their beauty, their shyness about dangers. I'm a little, you wouldn't know it, but I'm a little shy. And I brought a little horse with me, and I can't find it. It's somewhere here, and I don't know where. And I realized that I wasn't going to be able to put it on the altar, and I said, well, what am I going to put up there? Because I want to share. And I realized I always carry a vial of sandalwood oil with me. Sandalwood is warm, it's sweet, it has, it permeates, it's the scent that when I smell it calms me the most. And I was sitting back there frazzled. I couldn't find the little horse. Was the hymn of the month going to go right? I'm the coordinator. All this stuff going through my head. And I said, my sandalwood. And I took it out and I put some on, and I just calmed down. So I'm going to leave my little bottle of sandalwood here. And anybody who wants some instant peace may use it.
Well, the item about which I have a lifelong concern was something that happened when I was a child, 5 years old, and I had suffering sore lips all the time. And my mother finally called our physician and said, why don't you try putting camphor ice on it? Anybody know what that is? A few people know. Camphor ice, and it worked very well, I must say. Well, now, I've never forgotten that relationship with my mother. There were a few others, too. But what I've been doing ever since then is carrying this wonderful little thing. I'm sorry, where is Gail? I don't have anything as beautiful as that to carry around with me. This is called a chapstick, lip moisturizer, and you can get it in all colors and with different flavors today if you want. But this is just a very simple and plain thing, which has made me realize what can happen when you're only 5 years old and how it can live with you the rest of your life. And that's about, do you want that on your table there?
Certainly can.
In the eye of a bee and in our inner ear and in the spiral of our own home galaxy here, and the whole entire universe is a mathematical, well, at least the mathematicians have claimed it. There's a relationship, which I think the Greeks called the golden mean, and it's now called Fibonacci's curve because an Italian boy who was called Fibonacci, which means fool in Italian, who had a math head, also discovered it, and people in some mathematicians in ancient India discovered this relationship, which is also the basis of fractals. And it's here, and here, and it's a spiral on the face of the pineapple, in our ear, in the way coral grows, and everything. And to me, when I see this, it's a reminder that no matter how overwhelming life can be, it's all in the spiral, and it doesn't really matter even whether we live or die. What really matters is observing that, to me, observing that and sensing the calm of it all, and the fact that we really are all connected. Plant, animal, stone, star, we're all connected, and that's what this is for.
Thank you. Thank you for the sharing of yourselves. May we each find ways to remind ourselves of our best selves all the days of our lives. Let us conclude by singing hymn number 352, Rise as you are able to find a stillness.